Welcome to the Postmodern Art Podcast, the podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wowing the world over the platform they deserve. I am your host, Nathan Ragland, and for today's episode, as you listen on your strange machines, I feel like we should take a moment to admire the moon. Rabbit. Today's guest is Moon Rabbit, a musician that has described their music as rock music made for people who like to cry. This is an artist I have been dying for you guys to get a chance to hear, especially the music that they produce. With what is out there for Moon Rabbit, I have been hooked to just about every single song that they have pushed out, and I feel like, especially with the little bits that I have sprinkled throughout the episode, you guys will get a chance to listen, love, and hopefully support Moon Rabbit with the links down below, especially their Bandcamp. If you enjoy the podcast, feel free to like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. Leave a 5-star rating if you can. That sincerely does help. If nothing else, I see it and I love it and I really do appreciate it. If you want to go a little bit further with that support, maybe you should consider rocking some incredible merch at the merch shop at pmap.creator-spring.com. There you can buy some incredible merch done by some incredible artists that are former guests of the podcast to give you some incredible streetwear that you can rock out there in the world. If you want to go even further with that support, maybe you should consider being a part of the Postmodern Art Podcast Patreon at patreon.com/PMAP. There you can join fellow patron Jacob Ragland in enjoying some incredible content, such as behind-the-scenes access, early releases of the episodes, the opportunity to ask guest questions, and so much more. But now, without further ado, please enjoy the Postmodern Art Podcast. Hello again.
Hello.
Long time no
Take
see.
two.
Yeah, take two indeed. I apologize for the fact that we had to do this again and the audio and all stuff like that.
Totally fine.
I'll let you know right now, you already sound immaculately better already, so there we go.
Yay.
My computer is not a piece of crap. Oh, there you go. There we go. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, just trying to keep a level head through all the chaos. I can sure you can attest to that.
Yeah. That's been the story of the last 2 years.
All right, Avery, before we really get going, I must ask the icebreaker of the podcast, if I may. Let's say you get an opportunity to go to a desert island on your own accords. It is just you, alone with your thoughts. You get to kick back, relax, breathe, and just decompress for a little bit. To help make sure you don't go completely insane, though, you get to bring one piece of media or one piece of art with you. If given this opportunity, what would that one piece be?
Yeah, so definitely as as someone with absolutely horrific ADHD, I would need something that I could engage with a lot. So definitely a video game.
Okay.
Assuming that counts as, art.
Oh, absolutely. I have more than happily said that video games are art, so that's perfectly right up there.
Yeah, so definitely a video game and definitely one that I feel has a lot of replay value.
Okay.
So like currently I'm super obsessed with Hades again. I think I've put almost 400 hours into it at this point. Maybe Skyrim or Hollow Knight. Just one of those games that, has a ton of content and has a ton of like replay value.
I do want to say real quickly though, with Hades alone, like you just saying that, like you were saying, I don't know if video games are considered art. Hades should be considered like a masterpiece, like just based on the art of the game alone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Hollow Knight.
Yes,
both of those games are so gorgeous.
So
Skyrim,
gorgeous.
on the other hand.
Skyrim is just fun. Like whether you take it seriously or whether you install like a million different mods and just goof around with it, it's just fun.
Yeah, there's some really gorgeous areas in Skyrim also, but I think the thing that I think and I've seen a lot of people talk about is like Skyrim is the worst best game ever. Because there's so many problems with it. It's so buggy. The writing is so like wildly hit or miss. But it's just still so fun. It's like regardless of all of its flaws.
I was gonna say, like, if you think of it like this, and this is probably gonna be a weird way of wording it, but Skyrim is essentially like the room of video games, you know? Like, if you think about its intentional purpose, it does not work whatsoever at times. Like, it is a buggy mess with several major problems. But if you reset your mindset into what people have made it into be, is the best thing to ever come out.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. It's definitely not as much of a failure as what it's intending to be as the room,
Mm-hmm.
but it is, I think, a lot of what's so fun about it, and especially what's so fun about like the community is kind of similar. So yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, if nothing else, like compared to some of the other releases that Bethesda has had with how busted and buggy they can be, that's you know, I think Skyrim is a shining light compared to what it could have been. So,
It's at least been out long. It's been out long enough and patched enough times and re-released enough times that it's not as buggy as it used to be.
I mean, if you ask, Todd Howard or whatnot, I don't think it's been re-released enough. But anyways, but
They
never.
re-released it again so recently with fishing. Just like
They,
this year.
I was gonna say they
It's been
had it. I remember when they had the what was it, the Alexa version of it. I remember goofing around with that one just like a couple of times.
the what?
They You could like play Skyrim with your Alexa. Like you could say, "Hey Skyrim,
Oh
play
my
Alexa."
God.
It's basically like turn-based RPG, kind of like you're presented with a scenario, then you like answer like how you would tackle that scenario. When it was like an April
That's
Fool's Day prank or something like that.
that's so funny. So it's a choose your own adventure novel.
Exactly. Yes. But with Skyrim
Oh my
scenarios.
God. That's so fun. I have to
It
check that out
I
now.
know, I know, right? But nevertheless, a video game with tons of replay value. That is your answer. You're
Yeah.
locking that in.
Yeah.
Then, if that's the case, I cannot think of a better way to start the Postmodern Art Podcast. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Nathan Ragland. Feel free to subscribe or follow whatever streaming platform you prefer. You can support the podcast on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/PMAP or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PostmodArtPod for future updates and guest announcements, including today's guest. They are a musician who describes their music as rock music made for people who like to cry. One of the co-founders of Avenue Concerts. Welcome to the podcast, Avery, aka Moonrabbit.
Woo! That's me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. I know that a good friend of ours, A. Smith, was the one that really introduced me to your music, and I was just instantly blown away from the first second I've heard of your stuff. So I am just as excited to get the opportunity to talk to you and really divulge into your stuff. But before we really divulge into the music you are creating, I want to go back just a little bit. I want to know more or less the origin stories of Moonrabbit. What got you interested in art and music in the first place?
Yeah. Oh God, long story.
We have time.
Yeah. So I started the first like exposure I had to music was when I was 5. My parents signed me up for piano lessons because both of them are people who really enjoy music, and specifically, I think, yeah, both of them told. I had a lot of resistance as a little kid to piano lessons because I was like, I hate practicing. It's too much work. I don't want to do it. Because 7.
Yeah.
Um, but they would always say like, you're gonna regret, like you're going to grow up and live to regret not sticking with it, because both of them had that of experience of like, man, if I just like really double like stuck to trying to learn music as a kid, then I would be a lot happier now, because now I'm like too busy to learn a whole new skill. So I did stick with it, and it turns out they were 500% right. um, because yeah, I it was just like piano lessons. They actually kind of my teacher was a jazz pianist, so that's kind of the
Ooh.
style that I learned initially. But I took those until I was about 12. And then I stopped for a while after my original teacher moved out of town. Um, and so, as is often the case, as soon as I stopped having like the pressure of you need to be doing this because you're like taking lessons, I was like, oh, I really want to do this.
Okay.
Like, so I just kept on. I kept on with the music, and then um, in 10th grade. um, this is kind of where things like turned. I was introduced inadvertently by my English teacher to Radiohead
Okay.
because their newest album, A Moon-Shaped Pool, had just came out, and he was a big fan, and he was just um, playing their stuff in class, like as background music. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Who is this? Um, and then I like went and looked up their singles on YouTube, and was like, oh, because the only music I'd ever listened to before that was, what my parents listened to. We all shared an iTunes account.
Oh wow.
Um, so yeah, like literally the only music I would ever have access, like easy access to, was whatever my mom would do. Like every month she would be like, okay, this is how much money we're gonna spend on like buying singles and or albums from iTunes. And she would like, talk with me and my dad and be like, okay, so what all are we interested in? Um, and my music taste like stayed the same as theirs up until that point. And then once I discovered Radiohead and was like, oh, I really like this. And around that same time, I also independently heard of like Florence and the Machine. Um, and those, I think I just found Florence and the Machine like on the internet.
Okay.
But finding those two artists was kind of like when I was like, oh, this is like a completely new side of music that I've never heard before. Because all my parents listened to was, like the Beatles, not the Beatles. Why did I say that? The Eagles.
The Eagles.
um,
Somewhere in that
and
ballpark, just some animal.
just some animal, some band of old white dudes that names like, some so like the Eagles, Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen,
Okay.
all that like 70s, 80s classic rock. The most modern thing we ever listened to was like Adele and Ed Sheeran. Um, which one of those is good. I'm
Yeah,
sure you can
yeah.
guess which one I mean. And
How about the one that like only releases like a couple albums every couple of years instead of one that tries to do almost like a yearly or 2 yearly release? I think I could take the hint.
Um, but yeah, so it's funny. Basically, as soon as I was like, I want to listen to completely different music that my parents don't like that much, they were like, all right, we're just gonna get a Spotify account. So that they didn't have to, double their monthly iTunes budget for me.
I mean, in the long term, that's probably smart.
Yeah, if only Spotify weren't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We get that. We get that. But touchy subject.
Yeah,
By the way, make sure you listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast.
yeah. I'd say listen to my music on Spotify, but it's not on there.
It's not,
Um,
no.
So anyway, yeah, so I started listening to that stuff in 10th grade and just kind of went off from there, exploring the wide world of music that is not super mainstream. And I started playing around with GarageBand on my phone like the next year. Somewhere in there, I started taking guitar lessons. I don't remember when I started.
All right.
Um, and so I got a couple years of guitar lessons under my belt. I went back to take piano lessons for a bit and had a bit more of like a pop and rock piano focus. Um, and My guitar teacher, the place that I had that I took lessons at had like a yearly songwriting contest for students under 18.
Okay.
So I wrote my first song for that, just recording with like the shitty little touch instruments on GarageBand for iPhone. And then I kind of started asking my guitar teacher, like, hey, how do I like get better at this? And she gave me some recommendations for equipment and stuff. And my parents were like really happy that I was like fully getting back into wanting to do music. And they were super happy to just like buy me the equipment I needed as a birthday gift, but still. And um, just like really set me off on seriously recording stuff. So I released my first music in 2017. under a
Okay.
name that I am never sharing because it's really bad. It's not the name I released under now, and it's also not the name I used to release stuff under.
Fair
Um,
enough.
it's also I've got it on Spotify through an extremely shady free distribution service. So it's still out there because I don't know how to take it down.
It's out there, but
And
we're
this
not going to acknowledge that it's out there.
Yeah, it's out there. We're not going to acknowledge that. And we're going to acknowledge it to the point that my challenge to everyone out who listens to this and is curious, see if you can find it.
If you can find it, good for you. Um,
You can find it, good for you, and don't tell anyone else.
there you go. There you go. Would you say that, like, especially that first exposure to Radiohead and like really like, I guess your music knowledge being expanded, would that was that kind of more or less the moment it went from just like a general love of music and art to a passion and wanting to make it your career?
Yeah, I mean that's even the point. Because I before that, like I was a visual artist,
Mm.
and I still dabble in that, but it's not what I really love to do anymore. Um, And like I wouldn't even say I loved music before that. It was just I kind of liked it in the same way that most people like it. Where I was like, here's my favorite artist, and I just listened to it, you know, on the bus ride to school and back,
Right.
and in the hallways. And it wasn't like something that meant much of anything to me. Um, and so discovering this music that I like connected with in a way that I'd never connected with any music that I heard before was when I learned to love music. And or not even learned to, but when I just started to love music because I had music to love.
I
And
totally get where you're coming from. Yeah. I thought you
yeah,
had something
and then
else.
I
Oh, there you go.
sorry, yeah. It just went and it went very quickly from there.
Okay.
Um, and something else that was motivating, and this might sound a little self-aggrandizing, but I kind of realized like I really loved the process of making art, but I also recognized like I was taking art classes and stuff, and I recognized like looking at the art that I could like see people making in my class and see people making on the internet, I knew that I was not that gifted at art. Like it was something that I enjoyed, but I recognized from like very early on that this is not something I would ever be able to make into a career because I'm just not good enough. Um, and the bar for being technically proficient at art is so high now.
Oh yeah.
Um but when I started making music, because there's a way to be not very technically proficient at art and still create art that is very unique and has a voice and a point of view that makes up for the lack of technical proficiency. But I think music is a lot more open to that. Like if you, in order to make art that's not technically proficient that people still connect with, you typically have to be extremely unique and have a really strong vision, that makes up for your lack of technical proficiency. Because if you're just making something conventional and it's not done well, it's just like a normal thing that's not done very well. But with music, there's a lot more room for something to just have that spark, even if it's not um if even if it's not done in a technically proficient way. Like there's a lot more room for a song to be really good,
Right.
um and set itself apart without being something that no one's ever seen before.
Right.
um
I'll say if nothing else,
and
it
so
really gives like an artist more or less like I'm trying to think of the best way to word it to go piggyback off of what you're saying. Just like essentially, like it may not be like the technically most proficient or whatnot, but if you can easily tell, because I guess it's a lot more emotional or a lot more like open than some other art forms, to where like you could truly see like a person's vision or what they're trying to go for, or just like what they're trying to say, translate through music compared to a lot of other art forms.
yeah, I think it's a lot more emotion forward
Mm-hmm.
than most other art forms. I mean, I'm obviously biased. They are all, I think there are people who engage with like people engage with different art forms differently, but just I think on average music is like and stuff that we consume through hearing or like stuff that is active instead of passive, I guess, like visual art that is a sculpture or a drawing or a painting has obviously a lot, it can have a lot of emotional content in it, but it's sitting there and you have to go and engage with it. And same with like a book. But like music, movies, things that are active, they are actively speaking to you instead of sitting there and beckoning you. Um, and so I think, again, it's easier for music to speak really directly. Um, and therefore, like I kind of just realized from the beginning, like I have something I can express through music that works in a way that it doesn't through art. Like I can draw something that people think is really pretty. Um, but I can make a song that, and even when I wasn't technically proficient with music at all, I was making songs that people were like connecting to. Um, and that had a lot more, they had like it was a much more effective vessel for what wanted to put out into the world. Um, and it was like received better by other people, which obviously validation is the second reason I make music, but it's the second. It's not the fifth. Like
Right.
it is the second. It's a distant second, but it's still the second.
Right, right. But I mean, still, nevertheless, like, I can only imagine, especially for someone like yourself, with a lot of the music that you've created, like, with how, like, upfront and emotional and open that you are with your music and stuff like that. That validation, I can only imagine. While it is a second, a distant second, it's still like it's almost relieving a little bit to know that people can listen to that
Mm,
music and instantly relate or at least understand the message you're trying to get across.
yeah, definitely.
There you go. And I imagine you probably got that from a lot of your inspirations as well. I know you talked a good bit about Radiohead, and I know that they're very open and emotional with their music. Like, was that like the major inspiration? Is there any other artists or musicians that you could think of that you kind of taken inspiration from when putting it into your own music?
Yeah, I would say my biggest three inspirations are definitely Radiohead, Florence and the Machine, and Phoebe Bridgers.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, and I like to say like my music is basically if you put the three of them in a pot and just stir it all up. Because like Radiohead was, and they all inspired kind of different sides, I think, of my music. Because what I think Radiohead's biggest strength, a lot of huge Radiohead fans like to obsess with like the technical side of things or the innovative side of things. And I think like in the circles I'm in now, a lot of people really hate Radiohead, like hyperpop and other adjacent like experimental electronic and especially like high energy experimental electronic
Hmm.
um scenes. Radiohead is like up there with the Beatles in terms of the band that everyone loves to shit on for being overrated, which I understand. Because the way that both fans and music critics talk about Radiohead is like they're important, they're innovative, they're one of the best bands of all time. And I think all of like people who really focus on that side of Radiohead or focus on that aspect of why they're good are missing the fact that the real reason that they're so good is just because they are one of the best bands in the industry at expressing emotion through sound.
Right.
Um, and, you know, um, What they inspire me, the side of their music that inspires me the most is like obviously if you listen to pretty much any of my music, it's not anywhere near as technically complex as Radiohead's because I simply do not have the musicianship to
Right.
do that at this
I
point.
would say it's not that complex,
Um,
not yet, at least.
Not yet. We'll see. Um, but it's like the way they use sounds, the way they use a much wider ranging palette of sounds than your average like top 40 musician or your average classic rock musician,
Hmm.
to really dig into expressing emotions through sonics and not just through lyrics. So that's what Radiohead inspires. That's how Radiohead inspires me. Florence and the Machine inspires me with just daring to be too much,
Right.
like saying fuck like tastefulness, fuck being subtle. Like we're gonna we're gonna um like every single one of their songs is an emotional sledgehammer.
Straight up.
Um and so yeah, that's kind of, I don't always try to do that, but I usually try to do that. Um I want to, I used to worry a little bit about like what if my music is like too corny or too like over the top. But I just kind of decided like, no, this is what I want. Like this is what I want to do. This is what connects with me the most. Is that just completely unabashed, like too much, huge. I'm going to be as unsubtle as I possibly can with the emotional cues in my music. And I just think the bigger the better. Um,
I think
and
you
the
nailed that stick
bigger,
well.
the more the better.
Yep.
Um, and so yeah, that's where Florence and the Machine inspires me, and then Phoebe Bridgers just inspires me with her lyrics.
Yep.
I genuinely think she's one of the best lyricists to ever grace pop music. Um, and I definitely have a very different approach in that tell I am very upfront about the fact that I tell fictions. I don't write about my life. Um, but um, I think like the thing that I say about my music a lot is that the stories aren't true, but the emotions are.
Right.
Um, and so I always try and filter my real world experiences that maybe are too like sometimes they're just things that I don't think are exciting enough to write a song about. Sometimes they're things that are too personal that I don't want to put out into the world. Complete like I don't want to put all of those details out into the world, but I want to filter all of how I feel and like my emotional response to that situation through stories that where the characters are going through different things, but they're experiencing emotions that I've experienced. Um, and so, just writing from a place of emotional honesty, even if not literal honesty. And just the way that she uses, like, she doesn't, all of her song, I think the other thing about I think about Phoebe Bridgers is that she's actually incredibly corny. Like her music is so corny and earnest. And the reason that it works is because she's also too smart to just be corny. Um, and so like if her music wasn't as smart as it was, it would be unbearably corny. But if it wasn't as corny as it is, it would be unbearably annoying
Right.
and pretentious. And so just that finding that balance of being being very emotional and like to the extent that it could come off as corny, but balancing it with a sense of poetry and dark humor and just expressing, not always being like leading with obvious emotions, but not always expressing them in the most obvious way.
Right. I would like to The way that you're describing, especially Phoebe Bridgers, I at least like to think of her as probably one of the most like human artists out there, or whatnot, because it's like, she finds that good balance of like super serious stuff and super corny stuff, and like that's just every average everyday human. Like for me personally, I could get like super duper emotional and like crawl into a hole and like just cry my eyes out if I wanted to. But I could also say some of the worst puns that ever existed. I just find a good balance of that within my life. And Phoebe especially does like a great job, like you said, finding that balance, making her more or less, like I said, a very human artist compared to some of the superstars out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I imagine, especially for you, like, again, going back to just all those different inspirations or whatnot, like, as you were describing it or whatnot. Oh, what was it? I was gonna say, Phoebe, you were saying that for you personally, you said that while the stories may not be true, the emotion really is. I'm pretty sure I heard Bruce Springsteen actually say something similar to that about his own music. So I totally can understand where you're coming
Sounds about right.
from. Yeah, but I totally get where you're coming from. And speaking of your music, why don't we just jump right into it, because you have quite the back catalog of some really interesting stuff. So I know, like, some of the first ones I can at least attest to from some of your more recent names or some of your more recent titles that you like to release. The first one I was able to find is This Hysterical Light.
And it makes me want to scream, punch a hole right through the wall, wrap you up in spider web, so I don't have to see your
That one alone, like, is absolutely gorgeous or whatnot. Like, I can only imagine like the process of like that, as well as the adaptations that you did, basically having your own spin on like having your own interpretations of some incredible songs already and making it like infinitely better. I have to know.
Adaptations, my incredibly pretentious name for cover EPs.
I mean,
Which,
it gets the point across.
yeah, I had to take them down, or I didn't take them down. I privated them on Bandcamp because Bandcamp changed their terms of service last month to basically say that you can't upload covers anymore. And
Oh.
no one said anything about it. Like, I didn't find out about it until a couple weeks later when someone posted about it on Twitter, and that was the only post I saw about it on ever, which is wild to me because that's like a big deal.
Yeah, that is a big deal. I didn't even
Um,
realize that was a thing.
yeah, it was like right after the Epic Games acquisition.
Okay, so
Um,
maybe Epic Games is already trying to
so
be like, yeah, let's go ahead and cover our tail ends just in case.
yeah.
But like, even that aside, like, I just want to more or less talk about, like, especially with some of those early ones and maybe even some of the ones you do nowadays. I want to know more or less like the process for you. Like, how do you get into kind of a mindset to realize to creating, whether it's a full album or a song? What is the process for you? Like, just sit down and be like, I want to create this.
It really depends from song to song. I think a lot of the songs on This Hysterical Light in particular, and on Quixotica, I wrote like a line or a chorus, um, and then I built off of that. And usually I would be like, okay, this is like I have a verse and a chorus, or I have just a chorus. I'm going to get into GarageBand or Logic. I didn't. I think yeah, everything from this Hysterical Light and Quixotica was GarageBand. I didn't
Okay.
upgrade to Logic until after Quixotica. So yeah, I would sit down in GarageBand and I would record just the chorus or just what I had written.
Okay.
And then I would build in like I would figure out like basically like and fully produce like just a chorus or just a verse.
Oh wow.
Um, and then I would build off from there. Um, and write so I would have like here's a little snippet of what the song will sound like when it's finished, and then I will build off of that. So it would kind of be having just this little like emotional core of the
Mm-hmm.
song and figuring out how I wanted that to sound, what would work with the melody and the emotional content, and then filling out the whole sound palette, and then writing the rest of the lyrics. Um, and since then, because the first problem I have when I listen to my old work is that, I was not as good of a producer back then as I am now. So I'm always thinking like, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done this better.
Right.
But the second problem is I feel like, especially on this hysterical light, a lot of like, at least from my standpoint as like the person who wrote those songs, I can see a lot of the kind of the seams um in where I this bit of lyrics I kind of wrote as just filler, because
Mm-hmm.
I'd already recorded this long of a verse, um or I was like trying to connect this chorus to this outro, and I didn't quite sit on it as long as I should have.
Okay.
And so the approach I try to take now to avoid having problems like those is I try to um, write like either when I do still sit down and work with sound first a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do, I always try to just go with a base of loops, and not start recording single takes of like live guitar stuff over that until I have the all of the lyrics and the entire structure of the song figured out. So I either write the lyrics first, or I write the lyrics over a base of just like loops. Um, so that I can know like here's exactly what the actual structure of the song is, and I have the lyrics fully like put together in a way that isn't like haphazard at all. I can and so I try to, instead of, because I feel like the lyrics have always been kind of the foundation of my music.
Right.
I always put a lot of time and effort into expressing the emotional content through sound as well, but it's always building off of the lyrics. Um, so I always try to have that foundation like fully set instead of kind of winging it, kind of in the way that I used to.
Okay. No, I totally get where you're coming from. I did want to like pinpoint on a certain thing that you talked about in your little description. So it's talking about how with each song you try to like basically push out like you find the emotional core and you more or less like build off of that. How important and how difficult is it for you to translate like whatever emotion you're trying to emphasize with each of your songs? Because like I said before, like with each and every single one of your songs, I can tell that you put a lot of emotion into just every little bit that you do. So how important and also how difficult is it for you to translate that?
It is very important. Usually, the approach I usually take is I don't go into a song thinking this is the emotion I want to convey. I go
Okay.
into a song thinking this is the story I want to tell, and then I find the emotional core throughout the process of writing that story. Um, and so it'll end up hinging on, like, just this turn of phrase, or this basically plot point. Um, and I'll recognize like, oh, I've arrived at something that is important. And this is what I'm gonna focus on. Like, um, I guess to give an example, um, for when I was writing Eulogy for an Empty Frame, one of my
Mm-hmm.
most recently released songs, I wrote like the last chorus was one of the first things I wrote. Um, and when I wrote that, I was like, okay, this has this very specific um, feeling to it. Um, and so it has this very specific feeling of um, a very I don't know how to put it. I don't know how to translate it into outside of, sometimes a lot of my lyrics are like I can't really just sit and describe them
Right.
fully, because so much of the emotional content is just encoded in the story, like the poetry of it,
Right.
which sounds really pretentious, but
but
you
it's
know,
but it's also honest, because it's
true.
like, especially with the music that you're producing, it's not just like, you can't just say it to get the point across. It's like you're creating a full on like experience for a person to truly get the point you're trying to get across, and words just is not enough.
Yeah. And so like yeah, with that song, like I had like here's this last chorus that had, and I didn't even realize it would be the last chorus at the time, but like here's this chorus that has this very specific um approach to grief, because I knew from the beginning like this is going to be a story about losing someone that you love,
Mm-hmm.
and so obviously grief is going to be one of the main emotion there. But that last chorus had like a very specific way of expressing it, and I built off of that and had that particular approach to writing about grief the whole way through.
I mean, if I do say about that song alone, I think you've definitely got that point across and then some. That is one of my personal favorites that you've done so far. Just like the the raw emotion that I can just feel with like the lyrics alone, and like especially the composition of the music itself. One of the things that I love about your music as a whole is you make it sound almost like orchestral. Like you got like a full like band just playing behind you. Like I imagine that goes back to like some of your inspirations, like Radiohead and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But like how important is it for you to have that kind of sound going into your music?
It is definitely. I don't always specifically go for like orchestral specifically, but my manifesto basically is that I make music. I make bedroom pop that sound does not sound like it was made in a bedroom.
Right.
Um, and so I always strive to have a level of polish and detail, um, and scale that matches my ambition, with like my lyrics. Because I think a lot of, and I'm not ragging on this style of music. I think it's very much its own kind of brilliant. But the style of a lot of bedroom like stuff that actually gets labeled bedroom pop
Mm-hmm.
specifically, like Frank, I don't know, the first one that comes to mind is Frankie Cosmos, um and like I guess Sydney Gish, stuff like that is there's a lot of these artists that have they're very ambitious writers.
Mm-hmm.
They approach very big topics. They write they're like very strong lyricists, and their music is very spare and simple.
It
Or if it's not simple, it sounds
Yeah,
simple.
it's that kind of the
Um,
DIY, like it is made in the bedroom, like it is labeled as.
yeah. And again, I'm absolutely not ragging on that at all. I
Right.
think sometimes stripping down to that actually is better,
Mhm.
and works better. I don't think it works better with my style of melody, like writing melodies.
Mhm.
So, I always just try to, if not go big, like not every single one of my songs is big, but every single one of them I strive to make as polished and clean as possible.
Right, right. I know a certain way that you. I mean, with just about every single release that you have, if I can brag a little bit more, every single release you have tends to get that kind of message and that kind of mentality across. Just kind of this, like I said before, just almost like you're creating an atmosphere more or less that is like so lived in and like really like gets you invested like from the second a chord is played or something along the lines of that. Like
Well,
it's
thank you very much.
it's incredible how you're able to do that. I know one of the best ways you were able to do that is one of your more recent albums, Quixotica, which we did mention a little bit.
Do you wanna know how you're gonna die? Or would you rather it be an unpleasant surprise? Do you want me to cut your hair and you'll cut mine? And you'll cut mine.
Which you've described as an album about, say, I have it written, oh, change, haircuts, technology, death, and odd billboards. Um, how did that album sort of develop and come to be the way that it is?
So Um, it started off as just like I was just some random songs I wrote. And it didn't really start to take shape as its own thing until I was on so this is my favorite story to tell about my music
Let's
is the
go.
story of how I wrote advertisement for a morgue.
On the billboard there were two dead feet, a little white tack tied around the pixel hanging against the soul. Quite the sight to be confronted with in the backseat of an SUV, tired and cold. And I wonder how would those people feel if they knew they were on display.
Which is still one of my favorite songs that I've ever written. And so I was on a trip to Seattle with my grandparents, and we were in a lift on the way home from the airport. That is the one song I've written that is just fully about my own life and a thing that happened to me in real life
Oh wow.
because it was such like a mundane thing. Um, I was in the back of an SUV,
Mm-hmm.
a lift coming back from the airport. And I was looking out the window and it just kind of there was a lot of just weird stuff I saw in it just around Seattle, just on the way back. And it was a kind of an inspiring place to visit for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was actually brief tangent. I was literally like, looking out the window and being like, "Oh, that would be a good like that's interesting. That's something I could write a song about." And because there was this like patch of grass where you could tell there'd been like a wildfire and then it had been stopped at like a certain point. So it was just like a line in the grass from
Hmm.
like dirt to so I was like, oh, that's something. I never ended up writing a song about that. But the thing that I did end up writing a song about was this billboard I saw. Um, it had, again, as described in the song, it was two feet of like a dead body,
Mm-hmm.
with a little tag, like a little identification tag hanging from one of them. And in the middle, it said Georgetown Morgue. I was like,
Hmm.
advert, it's a billboard for a morgue? Why is there a billboard for a morgue? And it literally just sent me on that whole thought spiral of like, basically what I described in the song of like, why is there an advert? Why are they advertising this morgue? Like, is it like a museum? Um, and so I started writing that song during that vacation. I actually there's the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, which
Oh nice.
recommendation to anyone, if you ever visit Seattle, go to the Museum of Pop Culture. It's cool. And they have a little music section where they have these jam rooms with instruments in them, and you can go in for like 10 minutes and just record, play on the instruments, and like they have a system set up to record whatever you play in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I literally started writing that song
Oh
in
wow.
those jam rooms at the Museum of
I,
Pop Culture.
I've heard of bedroom papa is museum papa thing.
Museum Pop. I'm gonna make it a thing.
There you go.
Um, they like literally, no, literally, like as I was there, I was thinking like this, like if there's like I'm sure there's at least one DIY band in Seattle that has gone to that museum and gone into the like there's two rooms that have like a full drum kit,
Mm-hmm.
guitar, acoustic and electric guitar, bass and keyboard. And I was like, there's at least one DIY band that has just gone here instead of renting an actual studio
Right.
for sure.
I, if
Um,
you had told me that Nat left at London had done that, I would totally believe you straight up.
oh my God, that would be amazing. But yeah. So yeah, I started writing that song there. I finished it when I got back. And then months later, after the album was released, and I was talking about it with people in the Left at London Discord server,
Hmm.
um, I decided to actually Google Seattle Georgetown Morgue. It's a haunted house.
Oh, see, that makes more sense.
Yep.
But you know what? It doesn't line up with the narrative. No, I'm joking.
Doesn't line up with the narrative, but it is, the song was already out, so
Yeah,
I
true.
couldn't throw in that little twist.
But I mean,
But
I was to say even then, like just the initial thought alone, because I'm sure like somewhere out there in the world, someone has to be like advertising like a morgue or something like that. I'm sure someone has seen like that one weird advertisement out there. It's like, why are they advertising that? There is no need to advertise that kind of stuff.
yeah. And again, I mean, it does still, it fits into my manifesto again of real emotions, fake stories.
Yeah.
Um, it turns out I was wrong all along, but the emotions were still there.
So, so technically, like it's exactly your manifesto. It's a fake story, but it's just the real emotion behind it.
The purest distillation of my approach.
It's an accidental manifesto. There we go. Uh, I do want to say when it comes to Quixotica, like I do love that song, but like personally for me, Strange Machines always has like an interesting like place in my heart. Like the beat alone that you had for it or whatnot, like it's I just cannot get enough of that song. Like that, it was wonderful how you did that one.
Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely my second favorite.
Oh, there you go.
That album. And that was fully me just being like, I'm gonna write a Radiohead song. Like that was me doing a Ben's beat, a B-side from the Bens.
Oh,
and I think I did a pretty good job. It wouldn't have made it on the actual album, but
I mean,
would have been a B-side.
I mean, that's true. I mean, if you had told me that, yeah, like you saying that it was inspired by Radiohead, thinking back to the song, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I can definitely sense the influence on that one. But even then, like with that album in a whole, like again, that's just like one of the more recent ones. But it's not like you've really slowed down. Like we talked about a little bit. You had your Magma Fest debuting a few songs, including the absolutely hauntingly gorgeous Eulogy of an Empty Frame.
You say that it was fine, and you soak in the heavy silence, 'cause you both know that you're lying. You know there's no point to conversing with a ghost, but it's easy to cry to the empty space if you pretend that it's a shoulder,
Which, again, like when it comes to just your music as a whole, especially like the more you produce, the more I crave more of it. It's just straight up. Like, does it ever like blow your mind, like some of the songs that you've been able to create and some of the songs that you've developed? Like, do you ever have to step back and be like, how in the world did I even create that?
I I don't really have the how did I create that feeling, but I do like the other thing that I would say is kind of a driving mentality behind my music is I need to be making music that I love.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm not one of my own favorite artists, that's a clear sign that I'm doing something. I don't want to say doing something wrong, but that's a clear sign that I'm not living up to my potential. Because my like when I'm making music, that like I am in complete control. The only thing that is limiting me is my technical ability. And so my music is my opportunity to put literally every single thing that I think is good, that I think makes music good into one song. Like every single song I make, I am just doing it. I try to do it exactly how I want to. And again, the only thing limiting me is my ability to translate that vision from my head into the computer.
Right.
And so I do, listen back to my finished music and I'm just like, damn, I did a fucking good ass job on this one. And I think that very often, and I'm very proud of that.
I mean, you
And
should be.
I think more like I think we should talk, like as creatives we should talk about more, like you should fucking love what you're creating. If you don't love what you're creating, then you um should take that as motivation to learn more,
Yeah.
because either to learn more, or like you, if you don't love what you're creating, you should examine why, and that will give you a path forward, because either you'll find that you need to learn this or that, um, or you'll discover that you're not right, like you're not taking the approach that you maybe should be taking. Like maybe you're writing with too many external factors in mind instead of just focusing on what you want. Because if you love what you make, if you are doing what you want to do instead of what you think would be good based on whatever external factors, then you're going, like, being truer to yourself means you will make better music. um, and you will, like, obviously no music is for everyone, but
Right.
there's so many people in the world, there's so many people with incredibly diverse music tastes in the world. You just need to be completely true to yourself, and other people will connect with it. There will absolutely be other people, if you love what you're making, that will also love what you're making.
Absolutely. Honestly, what you're talking about, that's a mentality that I carry with me when I'm doing this podcast or whatnot. Like, I started this podcast in the first place because there were so many incredible artists out there that I wanted to get to know. Like, not just like the art or the music or whatever the medium they're doing, not just what they create, but like the people behind that. I really wanted to know like the thought process, the emotion, the inspiration, because a lot of people, you can definitely attest to this, like they put a lot of themselves into their art and people just either don't know about it or it just gets passed along just because haha, funny thing, all right, next. Like, for me, like I am creating like the podcast to where like I can truly sit down, listen to the conversation that I've had, even though I'm in the conversation, I'm having this conversation with the people. I can listen to that conversation and just hang on to every single word that like the other person is saying. Like, the questions are questions that I do take a lot of time to think about, and I really do appreciate like the people giving a wonderful response with that kind of stuff. Like, that's why I still do this podcast and still absolutely love it. I know that, like, you know, you were saying like creators need to talk about like having that sort of mentality. That's something I always try to push. Like, if you're not absolutely loving what you are putting out there, then find a way to then make the stuff that you love, because if you're not truly enjoying it, people are going to notice that. They're going to see that.
Mhm. And even if people don't see, I don't think it, I've listened to music by people who aren't that confident in themselves, and I can still, it doesn't necessarily come across as, oh, it's clear that this is not like something you were fully confident in. But then, if you hear the difference, that's when it's clear. If you hear the difference between something that was made um, with external factors in mind more than internal ones, versus something that was just made with love, you can
Yeah.
tell.
Oh
Or at
yeah.
least I think you can tell.
I would say, yeah, I mean, you can hear it, you can see it, you can visualize it, you can sort of. It's easy, especially with art, with how open of a medium that it is, and how easy it is to translate like whatever is going on in that artist's mind in one way or another. Like, it's very easy to notice that kind of difference. And like you said, like, especially when you're listening to music, you can tell the difference between something that's more or less just manufactured to get something out there versus something that people took a lot of time, love, and effort to make sure it is what they want.
Mhm.
So yeah, I know a way that you certainly have helped nurture that love is with the wonderful opportunity that you and a group of people have provided with Avenue Concerts. With some of the opportunities that you've created, like, how many concerts have you guys had at this point? It's been like what, five? It's
Oh
got to be more than
man,
that. It's got to be like what,
I think eight.
eight? Yeah.
I want to say Dungeon Fest was their eighth. Let's see. Tales from Transgender Street, Hyperspace, Wild Wild Fest,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Magma
Magma
Fest.
Fest, Rat Rave. That I went out of order. That's okay. Rat Rave, Neon Lights, Pretty Scary Fest. Okay, Dungeon Fest was our night.
Okay, but nevertheless, like, is it incredible to kind of know that not only are you creating incredible music, but you're given an opportunity for others to create and showcase the music that they love?
Oh yeah, it is. It's been such a wild journey. And I'm, yeah, like the thing that is most important to me about Avenue is um, I want it to get as big and successful as possible. And I think we've had much bigger successes than I ever could have dreamed of.
Mhm.
And I want, if we ever manage to return to the level of Wild Wild Fest or Magma Fest, um, or if we manage to sustain, if we go into the future and manage to sustain that, I will still always want to platform people who've never done a URL fest before, and people who have 20 followers, and people who are just doing what they love without striving for a platform, or people who are doing what they love and striving for a platform and who haven't been successful. Um, I I think, it is so important to look past the surface of who is like rising to the top of even like whatever level you're looking at, even if you're just looking at like the really granular level of this particular Twitter centered subculture, and like micro genre, within the world of, the kind of like big hyperpop bubble that we mostly exist in.
Right.
Um, there's people making incredible music in every corner.
Oh yeah.
We want to use the platform that we have to lift up anyone and everyone. And it means a lot to me, that, like the feeling I had when at our very first event, where I was like, I'm this complete nobody, asking Left at London to please play at our fan event, and she gave us a chance and used her platform to lift us up.
Mhm.
And with the help that she continued to give us in help, like connecting us with other artists, and the help that other artists that we've worked with gave us in connecting to other artists, our platform has grown through the generosity of people who have been more successful than us. And so now that we have that platform, it is incredibly important to me that for as long as we do things, and for as long as I do things, whether it's through Avenue or not, whatever means, and whatever my platform is, wherever I'm coming from, it is incredibly important to me to extend that generosity,
Right.
to other people, because I wouldn't be where I am without it.
Right. Right. I mean, I feel like as someone that tries to use their own platform to try to elevate other artists as well, I could totally understand where you're coming from. Just trying to give artists that may not have that opportunity beforehand, like a chance to really showcase what they truly can be. I know that like through my limited experience of being at a couple of these fests as well, like listening in or whatnot, like there are some incredible artists that deserve like an incredible opportunity, like especially with some of the sets that they develop. Do you personally have a favorite set of any of the fests, whether it be one of your own that you've presented or one of the other ones that either you didn't expect or like it was incredible just to still hear what they presented?
Oh man. I have to admit that like a lot of the stuff that we have is kind of in the very broad hyperpop umbrella,
Mm-hmm.
which includes a lot of people who hate the term hyperpop and don't make pop music, but just, the very broad world of um hyperpop and other experimental electronic music that people from outside have lumped in
Right.
with hyperpop. Um, Within that world, like a lot of that stuff is not the kind of music that I will sit down and listen to in my own time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's an energy to being at a URL fest, even though I'm just sitting alone in my apartment listening to it. It still has a very different energy being in the Twitch chat and being in the Minecraft server and talking to everyone, and that sense of communal excitement and energy just makes any music better, but it also means that like a lot of the stuff that I listen to divorced from the context, if I try to go and listen to it divorced from that context, I just don't enjoy it as much. Not because it's not as good, like, but just because it's not my taste personally. And so it's stuff that, I'm enjoying more than I normally would because of the venue. All of that said,
Mm-hmm.
um, one thing that does stick out to me is Salve the Dog, her Magma Fest set,
Ooh.
um, which was immediately after the release of Real Estate Dog,
Mm-hmm.
which is I'm not a huge noise music fan, but that is an incredibly good noise album. Um, and I'd gone to like the premiere party of it that was not that long beforehand, and then I went their MagnaFest set um was just incredible, and I think a lot of the artists that we worked with, but they in particular, um have a very special, like, just I don't know what it is, but something about their music and their presence is it just I think it really really speaks to people. And I think they're the person that more than any, like, they stick out to me in particular as an artist that, like, everyone at Avenue loves. Like, everyone that goes to our fests, whenever Salve is there, their set is one of the ones that gets people going the most. Um, and so I think like all of their sets have been incredible, but yeah, their Magma Fest set is one of my favorites from any of the concerts we've done. And then I think a close second would be um, In Love with the Ghosts set
Oh
at Pretty
yes.
Scary Fest. That one was it was the perfect mix of bangers and vibes.
Yes. I think that's
Because
how a lot of people can probably describe their music as a whole.
oh yeah. Because yeah, I think the biggest reason that I don't listen to a lot of the Avenue sets, or that I don't listen to a lot of the Avenue sets outside of the concerts, like I don't go back and listen to them that much, is because they're just so high energy the whole time
Hmm.
that for me it gets a little bit exhausting.
Fair.
Um, which again, not a judgment, just my personal taste.
Right.
Um, and so I really appreciate the sets that are kind of a breath of fresh air within the very high end all of the very high energy stuff.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, I can totally understand where you're coming from, especially for like I guess like for a lot of people, especially when it comes to like a concert experience, like they're probably trying to get like as much of the energy as they can from like the crowd, whether it's an IRL or URL festival or
Mhm.
whatnot. So, but I can also imagine like obviously like you said, every other person has their own different taste when it comes to music, just like every single artist has their own preference on how they want to execute. And In Love with a Ghost, I mean, like I said, their music as a whole is just like a mix of like bangers and vibes. So I can totally get like how that can come across easily in a set, and I can see why you could easily go back to it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but obviously, like we're talking about all these different festivals and all the albums that you've created or whatnot. It's not like hopefully you're not slowing down anytime soon. So I have to.
I've always been slow. That's my secret. I can't slow down because I've always
Well,
been slow.
there you go. I was gonna say just I didn't say you were being slow. I was just saying that you're not slowing down. Just because you're going one
No,
mile,
yeah.
just because you're going 1 mile per hour doesn't mean that you're gonna be slowing down to half a mile per hour.
Nope, I don't plan on it.
Well, with
I
that,
plan on speeding up quite a bit as soon as I graduate.
oh, there we go. There we go.
So,
We can get up to 2 miles per hour. No, I'm joking.
yeah.
But I have to ask though, at least when it comes to like short term, what should we expect next from Moon Rabbit?
Oh boy. So I think I posted about this on Twitter recently. what was going to be my next project or my next set of projects is currently on hiatus because my audio interface broke
Oh, lovely.
a little bit. And so now I cannot record vocals with my good microphone. Um, so I'm gonna be calling the company I bought it from and asking. Shout out Sweetwater Audio, by the way. They have the best customer service. They're so helpful. But so I'm gonna be calling them and being like, hey, is there anything I can do to fix this, or do I just have to replace it? It's like 5 years old, so I'm not surprised at this
Oh,
point.
still the fact that it's been
But
reliable for that long and then just craps the bed, I can see where the frustration is more than anything else.
Yeah. And what's the most frustrating? It would almost be less frustrating if it like fully broke. But the problem it's having is that, it is only a problem with the XLR input and not the quarter-inch cable input. When I plug in the microphone, it will just play. It works, but it'll just play static.
Oh,
On like
lovely.
it'll play like a buzzing that's goes in and out. And when it goes out for long enough that I have like this little bit of hope that maybe it's gone, and then it comes.
And then it just comes back.
So it's the absolutely most frustrating kind of broken. But yeah,
Ah.
so my vocal music, my vocal focused music is currently not being worked on. But I am focusing on just kind of playing around with more experimental stuff.
Mhm.
I have mostly instrumental kind of ambient slash post rock slash drone slash I'm just doing whatever I want album in the works. I don't know how long it's going to be until that comes out, but I'm hoping to put out some less ambitious ambient stuff as flannels relatively soon.
Well, that's good. At least we'll have something to hold us over until you can get yourself situated more or less. I mean, at least for me personally, any music you're going to create, no matter how much or how little you speak on it, it's going to be good music. That's all I'm at least hoping for. Um,
I try.
and I think you do a very good job with that. In fact, I think you do so good of a job with it, I think it's time to bring in more or less the dream scenario, if I may. Let's say I am Big Shot Mr. Moneybags. I come up to you and I'm like, look, Moonrabbit, we know you can create some absolutely incredible stuff. We know you can create some of the most amazing music that can revolutionize the industry. And we know that you just need a little extra push, and we're here to give you that little push. We have access to anyone and everyone in the industry and more money than there should be possible. Don't ask us where we got it. That there's too many legal questions behind that. If given this opportunity,
Tax evasion?
I said many loopholes and legal situations. Anyways,
Legal tax evasion.
if given this opportunity, what would be the dream Moonrabbit project?
Oh God. It would have to be like a ridiculously I would seize this opportunity to make the most ridiculously overambitious double or triple album in existence,
Oh,
first of all.
I'm down for that already.
I I would want to work with Nigel Godrich, Radiohead's producer.
Okay,
I would want to work with Phoebe Bridgers.
fair enough.
I would want to work with Julian Baker.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And I would want the best session guitarist that we can find. Um, but I would want a group, like, just a really talented group of session musicians to kind of help elevate my compositions past the relatively basic, because like my technique as working from my bedroom is that I'm technically competent at everything, but I'm not amazing at anything. Um, and I just pack on tons of layers to give that sense of fullness without needing to be the best guitarist or the best bassist or whatever. So I would just want like a really, really good band. A drum, you know what? A specific drummer I would want would be Marshall Vore,
Okay,
who
fair
is
enough.
Phoebe Bridgers' drummer.
Fair enough.
And I've seen him live. I've seen him like videos of their live performances, and he's such a goddamn good drummer. Um, but yeah, so I would just want like a really, really great backing band to kind of elevate my compositions and give them more dynamic and lively base for me to build off of with all of the extraneous stuff. I'd want to work with an orchestral arranger and a real orchestra. Um, and yeah, I mean, honestly, I would still want to do a lot of the work sitting alone in my bedroom and working on stuff with my set of tools. And then I would just take it in and be
Right.
like, okay, here's what I have. Let's make this professional.
Here's what I have. Let's ramp this up to like 11.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I just thought
It
this.
would be,
Sorry, go ahead.
I would make my melancholy and the infinite sadness. Like I would just go so ham.
There we go. There we go. That's a good mentality to have more than anything else, and I'm more excited to see that. But I was also thinking as you were talking about that, you're talking about bringing in all these other people to help you out with your own music. You produce a lot of your own music, so I have to wonder: have you ever thought of like producing for other people, or is there like a person that you would love to just collaborate with to create some of their music?
Yeah, so I am in a band. We're
Oh.
pretty dormant at the moment, but I am in a band called 12 Rainy Sundays in a Row.
Mm.
We've played at a couple Avenue Fests. We've released one album that I think is very, very cool. Um, and so, yeah, I do really, I want to do more production work for other people. That's definitely something I really want to do. I really want to co-produce a song with Left at London. It's going to happen someday,
Yes.
I swear.
It needs to happen.
Um, I'll send her this I'll send her this clip when it comes out so I can be like, I have one person vouching for me.
There you go.
Um,
I've had Left at London on this podcast. I've talked with her. I'm obviously like a huge fan of her music or what and all of that, especially with her most recent like the debut album that she had. Oh my god, like that just song
oh
to
my
song,
God.
absolutely gorgeous.
It is so fucking good. Jesus, it is unfair how good that goddamn album
I
is.
know, right?
Um,
Fucking, what was it? I've gotten to the point now to where anytime kudzu comes on, I just belt out that first verse, like without any hesitation. That's like my tradition with that song. I cannot not sing that when it comes on.
I nearly crashed my car once because it could be I was listening to that album and when It Could Be Better came on, I was just grooving too hard and I almost crashed.
I can attest to that. It's funny that you mentioned that because I don't know if you've watched the episode that Nat had been on here or whatnot, but she was talking about doing the same thing with a Frank Ocean song, because I forget exactly what the song is, but there's a point in the song to where like you hear like a gun clacking or whatnot, and like she likes to be physical with it, and like it's a giant shotgun, and she was going down the freeway and almost crashed this exactly, and almost crashed the car doing that.
Oh God. Yeah, no, okay. So this is not something I've talked about publicly a lot, but I've also recently started doing drag.
Oh,
Um
okay.
and so now so often when I'm in the car, I'm like just lip syncing to stuff and imagining like try if I what if I was trying to put together a performance for this. And I need to take it down a notch because it's dangerous.
Yeah, I was gonna say at the very least, like maybe not in the car, maybe like free time in your apartment or something like that. I mean, you
Oh yeah,
live.
well I also do that.
There you go. I was gonna say like
But
you live your life. Hopefully, you don't end your life by trying to lip sync in the middle of a car, right? But nevertheless, like that sounds like fun more than anything else. Like just thinking of
oh
like
yeah, it's so fun.
yeah, absolutely. What was I gonna say? And going back to like the Left at London thing, like knowing what you can create and knowing what Nat has been able to produce so far and what they're still going to be producing, like that should eventually be just a match made in heaven. Like it needs to happen. You can send this clip as well. Left at London, Nat. You need to make a song with Avery right here. You need to make a song with Moon Rabbit, and it will be absolute gold.
Yeah. Yeah, the closest I've ever come to collaborating it. Well, so I sang backup on one of her songs, alongside like a ton of other people.
My friends are kind of
Um,
strange.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah. So I'm in the chorus on that one, and then in one of Wow OK's Avenue sets, I recorded a bit of me pretending to be on a Discord call, yelling at her. Because the premise was that like I don't remember exactly what it was. It was some absurd joke thing, but like she was like the premise was that she'd had to put it together last minute, and so I was just calling her like, you need to send me this set in like within 24 hours. I'm gonna go on and rate your music and rate your latest EP 3 out of 5 stars.
I'm trying to. I like whenever you say that, I was first thinking of like one of the more recent ones with like the monster mashup or something like that. But no, that was a different set. That was a different thing. So I gotta remember that set. But goodness, yeah. I mean, even then, just these little touch of like these little instances of small collaborations needs to lead to the ultimate
Yeah. Every time she posts on Twitter, like, "Hey, mute, hey, who's interested in producing?" Or for like anytime she posts anything resembling like a call for collaborators on Twitter, I'm just like, "Hi, hi, hello, hi."
Hi, how are you? Hi, I've been here for a bit. Hi, hello. Um,
It's gonna happen one day, I swear.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But until then, sadly, we have to get down from the dream scenario. We got to get back to reality. And I'll ask the ever so generic question: where do you hope to see yourself 5 to 10 years from now?
Man, alive.
It's a good start.
Other than that, let's see. So there again, there's a difference between where I like realistically hope to see myself and where I like pipe dream hope to see myself.
Right.
So as I mentioned earlier, I'm graduating college soon.
Good.
And again, my parents, God bless them. I'm so lucky to have them be so supportive. I'm moving back in with them to focus on music full time for essentially the rest of 2022. Um, and I'm going to be basically building a portfolio and applying to trying to make connections in my local music scene.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love what I've seen of the local music scene here in good old Oklahoma, but got to start somewhere, and there are some really great people that
Right.
I know of.
If nothing,
And
that's
so
a
yeah,
good start.
yeah, it's a good start. So I'm gonna work on that. And I'm also going to be sending out, again, working on a portfolio to send out to film, TV, and game composing jobs.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so gonna be trying to get some scoring gigs. Um, and so yeah, where I more realistically hope to see myself going with this is I would love to be like an in-house composer for an indie studio. I think that would be really neat.
Mm-hmm.
But just any more somewhat stable position as a in-house or freelance composer. And just having enough of a body of work that if I am freelance, I can be like, here's my resume, like, like I'm qualified and I can like be consistently getting jobs. Um, where I would love to see myself in 5 to 10 years is signed to some cool indie label, cough cough Satisfactory, cough cough Phoebe Bridgers return my emails, and just making music and touring and stuff. But that's the pipe dream.
I mean,
But one can hope.
one can hope, and honestly, at least for me personally, if you just keep up what you're doing, like either one of those goals, I feel like you can get there at some point. I know you can.
Thank you.
Uh,
I know the mentality I've had for a while is I know I'm good enough, and I don't care if that sounds boastful. I know that I'm a damn good musician. And I just need to end up in the right place at the right time at some point because it really is so much about luck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll definitely talk more about being the amazing musician in a second. But before we divulge into that, as we wind down the interview, I just have one last question I want to ask. Obviously, like, you've been deeply entrenched in art and music for just about as long as you can remember. You know, it's been
Longer than I can remember. I don't
exactly.
remember being 5.
That is true. That is true. But nevertheless, like, you know, it's something that you've been a part of and has helped to get you to this point in your life with music and art and such. How important is art not just for you, but for the world as a whole?
I think art is what makes life worth living. Not to be dramatic, but like when and this is a thing that a lot of people said when the pandemic first started and the world like stopped still in its tracks for a while,
Mm-hmm.
everyone turned to art. That's what all of us did, whether it was watching like binging TV shows on Netflix, reading books, listening to music, whatever form of art that people were consuming, everybody turned to art.
Yeah.
Like everybody. Um, and art is humans have been making art since our earliest history. And it's just, I can't imagine that it's ever not going to be an integral part of the world and of society. And, I can only hope that there continues to always be at least as a very a big sector of it that remains, untouched by the slowly encroaching tidal wave of capitalism. We'll see how that turns out in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But that's a bit of a heavy conversation for this. But yeah, I think art is just as important as like fucking food and water, just in a different way. And I think yeah, we all it is what regardless of how you engage with it, everyone has some form of art that they engage with more than anything else. And you know, it's just it is what makes the world not a drab, boring place to be.
There we go. That is wonderfully worded, if I do say so myself. Um, that is all the questions I have for you. I've already showered you with Lord knows how much praise, but I'm gonna shower you with a little bit more because this podcast, it's my podcast. I do whatever the fuck I want.
And I love it.
Good. Showered it. Drink it in. All right. Now, Avery, seriously, like ever since I have first been introduced to your music, thanks to Ace, I I emphasize this enough, I cannot get enough of it. Seriously, like your music truly moved me when I first got a chance to like listen to it. Like I was all in, like I said before, from the first note. Like I was invested, I got the emotion, I got the love. Like whatever you were communicating, I was able to translate it and really like take it in. Like you do a wonderful job really letting yourself out there and truly being vulnerable more than anything else to everyone out there. And I appreciate you being able to do that, be so open about it. Hearing your story, it's incredible to know like just how much you've been able to do this and just how integral this is for you. Like this is as much of you as anything else in your life, and I understand that, and I cannot get enough of it. And I sincerely thank you for being able to do that, because I know it's not easy for a lot of people to be that open, to be that sincere. And the fact that you're able to do that and do that so well as well. Like you've already instantly, like even with what little you have out there, like I've already consider you at least like a top 3 or top 5 of my favorite artists of all time. Like hands down. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for being able to produce that. And I will be rooting for you every single step of the way for what you do next. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That means so much to me. Yeah, uh, my little Bandcamp description, I make songs and I hope they mean something to you. And it means, like I said, validation is the second reason I make my music. It means, and in the less shallow sense, it means so much to me to know that people get something out of my music, and that I'm leaving a little bit of a footprint on other people's lives. That means more to me than anything. So thank you so much.
I'm just being 100% honest with you. So, once again, thank you. For people who may also want that little bit of a footprint onto their own lives, go ahead and plug yourself for the people at home.
Yeah, here, let me stomp on your heart a little bit. Yeah, so yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at MoonRabbitSings. That's where I make a lot of bad tweets and also some good ones where I talk about my music. And you can find my music exclusively on Bandcamp at moonrabbitmusic.bandcamp. Moonrabbitmusic.bandcamp.com. You can also find my side project Flannels at flannels.bandcamp.com. And I have a Patreon, Moonrabbit Music, where I don't upload that often anymore, but you can get access to up to, I believe, over 30 audio files of demos, URL fest sets that I haven't released publicly, and the occasional fully exclusive release for as little as $1 a month. And if you want to really make me sad, you can even only subscribe for 1 month and download everything and then cancel your subscription. It's okay. I don't mind. I understand. I don't have a lot of money, so I don't mind.
That's fair.
And I don't. But yeah, so that's yeah. Yeah. Oh, also 12 rainy Sundays in a row. My band, you can check us out on Bandcamp and on Twitter at 12 rainy Sundays, except we don't actually post anything. But follow us anyway to make us feel better.
I mean, if nothing else, it's just more of the back catalog for people to listen to. I mean, truly enjoy your music more than anything else. And if you ever do get the opportunity to get your music on other platforms in one way or another, please let me know, because I definitely want to take in as much as I can off of however many platforms I can.
Yeah. We'll be working on that. If I ever get enough people consistently listening for DistroKid to be worth it, then I'll shell out.
Well, there you go. But do you have any final words before we sign off?
I just say to everyone listening, be yourself, be true to yourself. Whether you're an artist or not, whatever you do in your life, be true to yourself always, and do things for you, and you'll find the people that will mean a lot to you. If you're just honest with yourself and you're who you want to be for you. You don't have to be who you are for other people, because if you're who you want to be for you, you'll find people that love you for who you truly are instead of for what you're trying to be for anyone else.
Those are some kind words to definitely end a podcast on. And with that, all I have left to say is, for the people at home, hasta luego, mi amigos.
Tell me what's wrong, tell me sparks in motion. Sing me a song, tell me your eyes can't all open. Show me it all, pick me up in the car you drove when you used to call. Show me it all.
Hello again. Thank you for sticking around to the end. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, I greatly do appreciate it, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed today's episode. I said it in the podcast itself, but I was introduced to Moonrabbit because of Ace, and I am forever grateful for that, because by God, do you ever listen to music, or just any art form, but do you ever get exposed to something that truly rocks you to your core? Because whenever I first listened to Moonrabbit's music, I did not know how to feel. I was just blown away with the production and the emotion that they put into each and every single one of their songs. And I was honored to get a chance to really get to know them and get to pick at their brain a little bit, because You know, it's incredible. I know I kind of say it on this podcast, but music is a major part of my life. I mean, music is part of the reason why I have, I guess, my cultural identity and my true love and appreciation for art. I mean, you can probably see from the back wall if you watch the video version, but I mean, like, I know, like, the biggest one for me is, like, Tyler, the Creator. But I mean, like, you know, for those that are listening, you know, Kendrick Lamar just dropped a new one. That one, like, truly rocked me. But, like, anytime I get a chance to get exposed to some music in one way or another, it's incredible how much I can relate to certain pieces or whatnot. And I feel like, especially with what Moonrabbit is producing, the quality of stuff that they are producing, it's absolutely incredible. I know by the time that I'm recording this, they are going to be teasing releasing their newest EP that we kind of talked about, I think, in this episode. But, you know, at this point, like, especially with how early in their, like, music production career that they are, despite being deeply invested in it for most of their life, I feel like big things are coming Moonrabbit's way. I know big things are coming Moonrabbit's way. And you guys need to be keeping an eye on them. Or keeping an ear to them, I guess, in this case. Seriously, like, the music that they're producing, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. And I'm excited for whatever's next. No matter what. I guess that's more or less like the lasting impression I want to leave on you guys today. No matter what the art form is, no matter what the medium is, try to leave some sort of impact with whatever you do. Like, whether it's something meaningful or whether it's something memey, whatever your mentality is that you're trying to go for, just try to leave an impact, you know? Especially in today's world, like, the impact you can leave on someone just by producing something, no matter how big or how small it is, it's incredible how much that people can easily relate to it, no matter what you're trying to do. That's part of the reason why I keep going with this podcast. I mean, I know that my audience is growing. I know last week's episode certainly helped with that. Thank you guys that listened to the Cosmo Perry episode, because that was a big episode. Like 2 hours alone, Jesus Christ. But no. But knowing that, like, people are listening in on artists like Moonrabbit and such, and people are finding ways to connect to them in one way or another, like, that's why I want to keep going with it, because I know that for you guys, for the audience out there, it's leaving an impact on you guys, and I greatly appreciate you guys keeping on coming back and getting exposed to more incredible artists. I sincerely hope that, as well as supporting me, you're going out there supporting these artists, because as much of an impact as they probably leave onto their audience, I know the impact is greatly appreciated when the appreciation's back on them. So with Moonrabbit, or with any artist I bring on this podcast, or for you, the artists out there, whatever you do, try to do what you can to leave a good impact. You don't know how much people will greatly appreciate it at the end of the day.